The first day, they just gave me an index card with what the scene was, describing the scene.
There was a paragraph that was a very clear description of what is to happen in the scene, but no lines.
I was given the idea of the broad sketch of what the show was going to be about.
I feel like I was given some piece of paper and it had, I want to say, like a couple of lines or beats to get to.
There was an outline, but I never saw the outline. It was just verbally explained to me on the set, scene by scene.
Larry, or the director, in my case it was David Steinberg, would come over and explain what the scene was briefly, and then you just got a riff. They might say, make sure you hit this line at the beginning, or this line at the middle, or this line at the end.
But you really don't get too much information about anything happening outside of your scenes.
I knew the outline of what needed to happen in each scene. And as an improviser, I didn't want to think too much ahead, because that's when you get into trouble, because somebody doesn't say what you think they should say.
First day, AD came up to me and said, 2 more setups and then it's your scene. Well, I remember my heart just started to flip because I went, my scene, what scene? There's nothing, you're not holding a script, you have nothing to learn, you don't know what's gonna happen.
Didn't know, I was not given the plan, I didn't even know the scenes. He just, all right, Boris, you're next. I'm like, I'm next, okay, great. This is gonna be your party scene. Yes. And at some point he said, you're gonna reach for my glasses.
But again, once we got there on set, it was a go situation. Like, all right, Larry's going to come to you and tell you to wear a bra. And I was like, was there anything you want me to say? Like, they're like, nope, we'll figure it out.
And Ted Danson was there that day, and he could see that I was like shaking like a leaf. And he said, let me tell you something. 99% of any improv is just bad. So don't try and be good. That's something that you can just put out of your mind, which was so generous of him. And he said, you're going to do it over and over and over again. So that was like, that was my relief pill from Ted, which was really great.
I was nervous going to work, not being prepared like you normally would be with a script, But again, Larry has a way of it's all going to be fine, just follow my lead and just listen and everything's going to be great.
When it came time for us to do the on-camera rehearsals, one of the things I loved, because I was like, okay, well, what do we do? Because we're not supposed to do our improv dialogue, right? They were like, yes, we do not want you to start the improv for the rehearsals. We want you to hold that for when we're shooting, because we want to get an original take of whatever that dialogue is and how it comes from you. So when we started to rehearse, we decided what we would do when we were talking to each other was that we'd all just say, yada, 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 yada. And when the other person stopped, then I'd start yada, 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 yada.
This is how he works, which is so unbelievable. First of all, he is the best audience you could ever want in the world. If you're not in a scene with him, he often ruins the take from his own laughing. He would laugh and laugh and laugh if he liked what you were doing. So we would do the scene and then cut, and then he would say, let's do it again, keep this line.
What you said, that line right there, that's great. Let's keep that. And when we do it again, make sure you repeat that line.
I like when you said that better than when you said this, and those kinds of things.
Yeah, get rid of that, keep that, go in this direction. That was fun. There's not much in doing this.
Okay, that was funny. We're going to keep that. And Larry, let's do that line again. And, let's make sure we get that joke in. And it was being created in the moment.
He would want to rescue certain lines or certain moments from an improv, then you would start again. Your only obligation was to make sure that was there.
After the first or second take, they would sometimes tell us, okay, what we do need you to say is X, because we need that line for going forward in the story.
When you're on stage, it's the yes and everything is accepted. Everything is yes, okay, let's do it. But in a TV show where they have to create moments and get to certain places in the storyline, you might finish a take and they would go, no, don't say that. That gets us off track. Or or make sure you do this, and which of course you would never do when you're improvising on stage at Second City. You would never say, don't do that.
So it was really, really fun because you do that first one, get a little refinement in terms of the notes, do it again, get more refinement, do it again, get more refinement. I think probably average was like 5 takes.
By the time you're doing your 5th or 6th take, it's a script.
And you know, actors all the time on the way home, you'll be like, oh, I should have played that line that way. Well, in this show, they're letting you do it a bunch.
There were 2 handheld cameras basically, so they're catching a lot of the stuff.
And then sometimes I think they would have to do coverage, so we'd get a bit from a different angle, and the dialogue may match exactly, or it might be kind of a paraphrase of what was done in the previous coverage or the previous master. So I didn't know how they were going to edit it together. I still would love to have been a fly on the wall during their editing process, because I'm sure they had a lot of tricks to make things match up.
One time I did 1 take, and then between takes, I asked Jeff Garland, I go, do you remember if I, use my right hand or left hand when I said the thing that I said? And he goes, doesn't matter, just say whatever you want. He's like, nobody, you make it up again. Like basically I was like, oh my gosh, I don't have to worry about continuity. I can do whatever I want.
We were shooting this scene where I was trying to explain why Larry couldn't work as a salesman. And I kind of started stumbling on my words. And again, they kept it because I sounded like a real person talking.
Somebody on the set said he wants it real first and funny second. It's not jokes.
There wasn't much to worry about as far as like, am I being funny enough or anything like that, which is always, a concern. You want to be funny in a comedy, I guess. Although Larry's strongly and rightly against trying to be funny, which is something I learned there, actually.
The one thing that I felt about doing Kerr was that it was this collective, let's put on a show feeling.
It always felt like a student film in a way. It was so easygoing. It was it was a minimal crew back then.
They had no hair and makeup. They had no trailers to sit in.
Somebody said, eat breakfast before you come. There's not a lot of food on set.
They had a Winnebago on set that we would hang out in, like all of us together.
And we were all in there. Larry was in there, I was in there, other actors in there.
And there was these other guest stars that were really famous on my episode, including at the time, so Stephen Colbert was not, he was a correspondent on The Daily Show, but he hadn't had his own show yet. Paul Mazursky was a famous director. And then, of course, you have Cheryl Hines is in the episode, you have Jeff Garland, and because we're shooting in New York, they had us sharing a trailer.
First you're like, oh my God, I don't want to be treated like this. I need my own room. But when you think about it, and the culture and the fun, you actually got to be with Larry David and all the creators and fun and comedians. If Larry come out the bathroom, I'm like, do I need to wait 45 minutes? Can I go in?
It felt actually like this homey, comfortable place where everybody is walking around smiling. I didn't really feel any stress. There was a lot of laughter, and it was just so that laughter would just kind of go into merge with the scene. And so we'll just continue laughing, and somebody would say, and action.
It was a really open and welcoming set, because it has to be, because you've got to create new content out of your own brain.
I think one of the strengths of the on-set experience there that fosters good work is even though it's Larry's show, even though he's producer and the star and the center of that solar system, there is a feeling of collaboration.
It's just the culture. So you're walking into basically adults who can play and be silly, essentially. And that when you play stuff straight, then you're going to probably have the best result.
The experience of it was maybe the most fun I've ever had on a set.